Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. Welcome. And with me is my regular Wednesday guest, Krys Copeland. Hello, Krys.
Hi, good to see you again. And my apologies to everyone for missing last week, especially last minute. I got sick on Tuesday and thought I could push through on Wednesday, and woke up on Wednesday and realized I could not push through.
Yes.
So feeling better
Well, we're,
this week, though.
we're glad you're feeling better this week.
Thank you, and thank you
And
for all the healing energy that everyone sent. I really appreciate that. It very much helped.
wonderful. And hello to Nikki in the chat room. It's good to see you.
Hi, Nikki. Good to see you.
And today we will be talking about various Corellian publishing things. And um, yeah, there we are. And as you know, well, and as Nikki is already doing, you can type your questions or comments onto whatever platform you're watching on. They should appear here in our chat room. Most of our platforms do appear in the chat room, one or two do not, but most of them do. And we love to be able to talk with you.
Mhm.
And so, Krys, what have you got for us this week?
Well, I'm really excited because we've just finished the first round of edits with your latest book, the Book of Stones, Reverend Don's Books of Stones,
Yep.
Metals and Crystals. And so now it's back over to your desk for a final kind of glance through to make sure everything is
Yeah.
exactly as you want it. And as soon as that is finished, then we are ready for publication. So everyone who has pre-ordered that book, thank you so much for your patronage. That will be on the way to you very, very soon. So thank you so much for supporting us on the pre-orders. If you haven't ordered the book yet, you can do so on our website, corellianpublishing.com. And you're going to find some really cool things in this book that you probably won't find in a typical introductory kind of crystals and stones guidebook. We will contain all of the introductory material as well, but there's also a lot of advanced techniques and concepts, including things that like I'd never even heard of before. One concept in particular that is in I think it's the second or the last chapter on healing techniques
Mhm.
with advanced healing techniques with stones, and it talked a lot about how you can use crystals as replacements for acupuncture.
Hmm.
So instead of piercing the skin with a needle, you put a crystal point on it, or just push it to the skin, but you don't push it into the
No,
skin.
no, you don't want to push the crystal into the skin. That would be,
Yeah, and you had mentioned how this is a very useful tool for people like myself who suffer with
Mhm.
chronic pain.
Yes.
As many of the people in the audience know, I have fibromyalgia. I talk about it a lot on social media. I've talked about it before on this show. Um, but because of that, going through, and I do get regular acupuncture and needling treatments as part of fibromyalgia treatment here in the Netherlands. However, it is extremely painful for me. Like the
Mm.
next 2 days, I am basically comatose from the pain. I'm sitting on
Yeah.
the couch or lying on the couch and I cannot move because it just hurts so much. And this is such a great alternative because, and this is something that is also verified, at least in some ways, by science.
Mhm.
We are all energy beings. We produce energy, we create energy, we give off energy. And whether you want to think about that in scientific or spiritual terms, to me, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, if you think about the body as this energetic force, and you're trying to get a muscle to contract or to relax, and you pierce into the aura that surrounds us, the energy that we give off, that could very well cause an electric reaction from that muscle. I know because I felt it without the crystal treatment, right?
Mhm.
Like, if someone is standing behind me, I can sense that
Yeah.
because I can feel it. And I think most people have that sense. I don't think it's anything supernatural at all. I think it can be, explained by science and time. But yeah, it's definitely a good sense to have. We don't have just five senses like we were taught in basic science class. We have many, many more.
Yes. We want to say hello to Janet Gann in the chat room. It's good to see you, Janet.
Hi, Janet. Good to see you.
Well, one of the things that we talk about in a lot of different books that I've worked with are all of these different energy points in the body that you can work with. In the degree materials, we talk about the major chakras for the most part. We do have one particular chapter that deals with minor chakras, um, but only in an introductory sort of way. And this deals with a lot of the minor chakras. And hello to Magical Cloud in the chat room. It's good to see you.
Hi, Magical Cloud. Good to see you.
And as you're saying, there are a lot of different ways to interact with those. Acupuncture is very famous. You can use crystals in that way. You can use just plain energy in that way. I used to know someone many years ago who had this little electric device that they would use to interact with those points with just a little shot of electricity.
Like a
I
TINS
don't,
machine.
yes, something to that effect. And of course, there's also moxidermy. And hello to Renee in the chat room.
Hi, Renee, and hi, Magical Cloud. Good to see you.
And that's where you apply heat to the different energy points. But all of these are different ways of interacting with them, and they have different comfort levels for different people. And like you were saying, for some people, acupuncture is rather painful, whereas working with crystals is not going to be that way.
Exactly.
And so I think people will find that to be a very useful technique.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you have like tender point sensitivity or anything to do with muscle pain in
Hmm.
general or joint pain. Yeah, this can be, and Reiki is also a great option for that. I don't know if anyone.
Hmm.
I would love to see Reverend Don's Book of Reiki next or Book of Energy work next. That would be wonderful. I've been waiting on the Book of Energy for a while, so hopefully that'll be on the 2025 list.
I think it is on the list, but I don't know if it's the next one.
Yeah.
We'll set the next one after we get the final rewrite of this one. And we want to say hello to Angie Handley, who says this is great. Thank
Hi,
you, Angie.
Angie. Yeah, and if anyone in the chat has any advice, feel free to share it with the
Yeah,
audience. Yeah, we will discuss it on the show as well. It's great to be able to, especially with the lack of modern healthcare in a lot of ways in the world. It's important that we as individuals, as in the pagan community, have these conversations with
yeah,
each other. We
that's
may
true.
be the only healing access that we have, so let's support
Yeah,
each other through that and give each other all the
and
advice that we
and
can.
yeah. Hmm. When we started Reverend Don's Book of Stones, Metals, and Crystals, I didn't expect it to turn into something quite as comprehensive as it turned into. So if people are noticing that it's a month late, there's a reason it's a month late. It's significantly larger than it was originally envisioned. But that will be good for the people who buy it because there's a lot more in it than. But that could happen with virtually any subject, really. But it did happen with this one because one thing runs into another, and one of the problems with writing this kind of book is when do you stop? Um, the book of astrology was that way. It could have gone on much longer than it did, but I had certain models in mind that limited the scope. Um, but yeah, any book of metaphysics, any subject in metaphysics can become quite encompassing. And hello to Swack Fan in the chat room. It's good to see you.
Hi, Swag fan. Good to see you. I'm very curious to know what your name means. It's a great handle there. Yeah, so and you're absolutely right. Especially for this Stones book, there's the section on crystal elixirs,
Hmm.
which gives a lot of recipes. Some of them more simple, some of them a bit more complex.
Hmm.
So a range of skills and accessibility for those. And
Yeah.
yeah, our biggest thing was like how do we keep it from getting to be a book on its own?
Well, and
Because
it could be a book on its own. I mean,
absolutely.
Many of these things could be. Okay. No, no, no. I'm checking on SWAC. I believe it's a Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Oh, cool. So you're a sports fan.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, when I had the museum in Salem, we were a couple of doors up from Lori Cabot. One of the things she did was a lot of elixirs, and she had these beautiful jars that she used for this. I know there's a better name for them. The Southwest Athletic Conference, SWAC fans.
Swag fan. Okay. I
Um,
know a little bit about the SEC, but that's about it. I know a little bit of the SEC stuff.
I know nothing apart from Quidditch. What can I say? But that's me. But they were very visually impressive, which I imagine was why they were displayed that way. Everything in her shop was visually impressive. And it doesn't have to be visually impressive. But you know, when you're working with people, you want to make that beautiful impression. Um, but I became far. I already knew about using stones in this kind of infusion, but I became more interested in it after that experience. And and of course, you can do it with stones. You can do it with other things. There are lots of different ways to charge and influence water and other liquids, but we talk about a few of them in the book. It could have been its own book.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the body grids. There
Mhm.
were so many different body grids: full body grids, partial body grids for certain conditions or certain body group or
Mhm.
part groups.
Yep.
And so that was really interesting to see how and you talk about how to layer on different grids
Hmm.
together and connect them into like a more holistic healing process. And the emotional trauma healing grids were quite interesting, especially when taken in context with your previous work
Hmm.
where you talked about healing emotional trauma, like
Hmm.
peeling back the layers of an onion, and you reinforce that in this one where you talk about how it may take multiple times to cut these
Yeah.
connections to end these old patterns, and that repeated healing sessions may be necessary for, especially for deep emotional trauma. So
Yeah. It's absolutely true. It's true with all magic, really, that sometimes you may need to do it more than once,
yeah,
and there's
absolutely.
nothing wrong with that. Unless you're doing it through lack of confidence, which is a different matter. But if you're doing it to go farther, yeah, I think it's often very helpful. And in my writing, I'm trying not to be as pronounced about it in some of these books as I am in the degree books, but I'm very big on repeating what's important, on kind of drilling it in. And I probably do that too much, but I believe in coming back to these things to emphasize their importance. And yes, this is something you should pay attention to. And so, yeah, we do come back to certain things in one book after another in order to approach them from different aspects, because they are some of the most important things we do in metaphysics. Healing emotional trauma. I hesitate to say anything is the most important focus, but it's one of the most important focuses that we can bring to our metaphysical work, shadow work, and working on uncrossing our crossed wires, which is what that basically comes down to.
Yeah.
We don't realize, as a general rule, how trussed up we often are by our traumas and expectations and other shadow elements until we start doing the work. And it never safely stops because as long as we're alive, things end up in the shadow. It's just natural existence. But as we go and as we feel more of this, there's less to deal with, and it's fresher. One of the things I've talked about when talking about energetic work, and um, if we ever do write Reverend Don's Book of Energy, this will be part of what I'll talk about. You can tell how old an energetic blockage is by what the energy feels like. If it's relatively fresh, it's going to be relatively fluid. If it's very fresh, it may feel almost like water to you when working with it. If it's a little bit older, at the risk of an unpleasant illusion, it's a bit like mucus. And it gets a little bit older, it's a little bit like a fishbone. It becomes much more solid, but still flexible. And if it gets really old, it's very immobile. And how do you feel this? Certainly not in a physical sense, but as you're working with the energy, you can feel the texture. You can, and often for me, I'll get visual images as well, which help me to know what I'm working with. And when I was working in my own shadow work, when I was working with some of the deepest things, the way that I perceived them was like rocks or root vegetables being dug out of the earth, except I was the earth.
Mm.
But really old energy blockages become like that. And they take a lot more effort. But once you've gotten through those, you have so much more energy and so much freer energy. And yes, you'll still make new blockages, but they'll be easier to clear. And hello to Steve Taylor in the chat room. It's good to see you, Steve.
Hi, Steve. Good to see you.
And I love to see everybody every day in the chat room. And not everybody says hello every day. And of course, not everybody watches every day. Not everybody's in that position, but it's always good when people do say hello. I enjoy it. And, it's one of the things that I measure how well we're doing from. Because if I see the old familiar names, I know we're still doing well. And if I see new names I've never seen before, well, then I know we're doing even better because we're drawing new people. And we have a good mix of both.
One of my favorite YouTubers, Curtis Connor, he gives like 2 greetings at the beginning of his videos. One is a greeting to everyone, and then the people who have been here before get a second extra special greeting.
That's cool.
So, yeah. And so then he says, if you show up next time, you'll get that extra special greeting.
There we go. One of the things that I really enjoy is when I see names that I've not seen in years. And that does happen. People who have been with us for a long, long time but haven't said anything recently. And I look down and say, oh, I remember you from the vlog 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And that's always great. Or I remember you from the school 20 years ago. And we get people like that. And that it tells me that it's worth continuing to do.
One of your friends from like 10 or 15 years ago just reached out to us on email to ask about one of your books, wanted to see if it was still in publication. So, yeah, all of your books, I believe, are available on our website or on Amazon. So, if you can't find it on our website,
yeah.
Sorry?
If they're not, they could probably be made available.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, if you go back to some of the things from the 1980s, they're not there, but the masters still exist. Every now and then we talk about possibly bringing those back. And hello to Moon Dancer in the chat room. It's good to see you.
Hi, Moon Dancer. Good to see you.
I've occasionally talked about doing a compendium of the Wheel of Hecate magazine, for example, which I don't think I would just reprint it as it was, but taking the better parts of it and putting together into a book might be an interesting thing.
Absolutely.
We've talked about, for example, the Roundtable magazine, which went. I want to say it went for a decade. But the thing about the Roundtable is it was very much a community magazine for Chicago. And although it had general interest articles in it, one of the best things about the Roundtable was the local news. of all the groups that were active at that time. But I don't know if that would mean anything to people today. But we certainly are keeping it all for posterity, because I look back at the leading priesthood of Chicago in the '90s, and there aren't very many of us left. Donna Cole-Schultz is gone, Victoria Carlson is gone, Chris Crosby is gone, um, and Dina Buddha is gone. And there are some people who are still there. Demetria Nanos is still there. Joan Forrest Mage is still there. But a lot of the people who were prominent in the news then are ancestors now, and that is it's always an interesting point in life to come to. But this is why we have our elder care ministry that we're working on, because um, I am now physically speaking an elder, and it is interesting to look at the changes that we've seen, and that's one of the reasons that I've been trying to write these books um, that I could have written years ago, but I was busy doing other things. And if I'm ever going to talk on these subjects, I need to do it now, because who knows when now will no longer be a thing. And someone may be out there channeling me at that point, but that's not going to be the same. Although that does depend. If we ever make the uploaded AI version of me, that might be different. I'm very curious to see if a spirit can use a computer program to communicate with the physical world.
I mean, we are energetic beings, so
Yeah,
it
and
makes sense.
that is part of that idea.
Yeah.
So at this point, we are a little past the 20-minute point. I want to take a moment for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. And why are we going to a word from our sponsors? Because we love our sponsors. Ready to unlock the secrets of the universe? Join me, Reverend Don Lewis, for my metaphysical and magic auctions at Gaia Thrift at whatnot.com. Discover fascinating artifacts, mystical crystals, and rare and unusual books that could change your life. Don't miss this chance to bring a little magic into your world. Reverend Don's Metaphysical and Magic Auctions, where the extraordinary can become yours. And thank you to our sponsors, Equinox Learning Hub and Reverend Don's Metaphysical and Magic Auctions. And we are back. And we have about 5 minutes left. What? Is there anything else? Well, a Moon Dancer says, isn't that what a spirit box is? Well, more or less, yeah. But like everything else, we're evolving and looking for new and better ways to do things. So speaking of new and better ways to do things, is there anything else we'd like to say in our last few minutes about Reverend Don's Book of Stones, Metals, and Crystals?
I think I'd just like to mention the different elixirs that you have and the different uses, so that people can have an idea of what elixirs they'll be able to make with this. So you have one that's specifically for balancing the chakras, which I think is really great, along with like a lot of meditations that go with that. Let's see what else. There's also some safety directions that you give with it, so you make sure that that's like first and foremost. And
There's
understanding
certain stones you should not be drinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So if a crystal is not water safe, use the indirect method. Place the stone in a smaller container like a glass jar, and immerse it in water. The energy of the crystal will infuse the water without direct contact. So that way you can keep it safe. And of course, if you're not sure about putting it on your body, then put it on an object instead and carry that object with you.
Mhm.
So just some nice safety tips in there. Also, just how to make the basic elixir, like the basic steps for it, for preparing the water and infusing the water, and the advanced recipes that you give. There's one for love and compassion, abundance and success, spiritual connection, protection and grounding, which it comes in a spray form, so you can spray it around your home too. An energy boosting elixir that's made with citrine and mint leaves. I thought that was really nice.
Mhm.
And also some topical applications for them. So, like running them in baths or using them as anointing water or facial sprays.
Mhm.
And then the kind of sourcing considerations with this, as well as the health precautions and the energetic cleansing.
Well, you mentioned using sprays, and one of the questions I've gotten frequently over the years is what can you use in place of like an incense, which works through smoke, and a spray is a very good choice for that.
Especially crystal
Yeah,
infused, so you can avoid that smell if you're
yeah,
sensitive to smells.
hmm absolutely. So there are always workarounds. Now, Swack Fan says, I know that this is off subject, but I live in Minnesota right now. But my wife wants to move back to Louisiana, and I don't want to leave. Um, well, given that we have 2 minutes left of the program, oh, and hello to Rev Michael in the chat room. I'm not entirely sure I can say too much to that right now, but you obviously have to work out something that's going to work for both of you. But I think I would recommend tuning in to Tarot Thursday tomorrow night and maybe talking with Reverend Mary or Reverend Brian uh, for a reading for that and see what the cards would recommend. And every Thursday night we have Tarot Thursday here on our platforms and do lots of readings. For us, yeah,
And if you feel like if you get that reading tomorrow night and you feel like it was great, but you'd like to have something a little bit more in depth, and you'd like to explore that further, we do offer sessions on our website
yes,
that
we
are
do.
more extended. So feel free to, if you go in tomorrow night and really get something useful out of that, and you feel like investing a little bit more into continuing that discussion, yeah, we recommend you check out the website and the
Yeah,
psychic sessions that we offer.
yeah. Reverend Mary, Reverend Brian, we are all available for full readings, and you can book those at CarelianPublishing.com. And with that, we've come to the end of our half hour. Thank you for joining me, Krys.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow. Krys will be back next week. And with that, let us close with our prayer, as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all the wonderful things that you put in our path each day. We ask you to help us to always find the best ways of doing things that help us to move forward in our lives. Help us to find the ways that work best for us, that most fit our needs and tastes, because there are so many things to choose from, and help us to enjoy the eternal variety of existence. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love, and knowing you are always with us, from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. May you be blessed now and always, and I will see you tomorrow.
Blessed be.
Blessed be, everybody.